Hi everyone. Good morning. Good evening. I guess since we are already four minutes past the scheduled time, I'll start. I see there are less people, but still I'll start because it's too late for you guys. Okay, so any questions before we start? The topic we had already covered, something which you would have maybe gone ahead and did some hands-on or any kind of confusions you have. No problem. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Then I hope. Then I get it. I think there is no problems or issues, or maybe you didn't went back and did some hands-on. But yes, please try to do this and try to create some sample assemblies for yourself so that you are well versed with the topics that we covered during this. Okay, so I'll come back to the studio part. I think from the topics that we had already covered. Well, then let me hide this. Okay, I think the topics we have already covered were something. Please, we have already covered. I think we have done the routes and all assemblies part two. We had the properties integrations we had seen, even with the aggregator component, common components. Okay, yeah. We were on this module, scalability. Okay, so we have already covered about splitters and aggregate. I will show you one sample assembly which I went ahead and created and how it would look like and how it splits the XML output. Okay. The aggregator also maybe we will do it time, and then there are workday common components like page get it. I'll show you this is something used in web services for the amount of output calls, and then workday public web services provide. Okay, web services calling we have already seen. So what I'll do is through the theory I will go back to the studio. Let me minimize the board. Let me close. Okay, guys. So in this assembly studio or in Workday Studio, what we are doing is on the start here component. I think this was the initial assembly which I created on call. It's just few of the things. The report execution was not happening, so I added few of the things. Or a couple of which is launch parameters. This report, what we initiated as a report service, a new hire summary has two launch parameters. One is start date and the other is end date. So until we pass these parameters, the report output was getting blank. That's why our feature was not generating any messages on spread. So what I did is like created a launch parameter for these to be passed on to the report. So a date and end date, a simple type of, if you see, these are simple type of launch parameters. And if you remember, there are three types of launch parameters we can create: simple type, enumeration type, and reference type. This is enumeration simple type of parameter. I use simple and the type I select as date. Okay. So on the next step, I created a sync variation and I got this launch parameter in prop. Props are, you can say, a variable within the assembly. That's how we declare. So this is what I'm doing. I'm creating a variable start underscore dt and taking it from the launch parameter that will happen on the integration event. Okay, lp dot get simple data, and then I'm declaring a variable start dt, and this is how we declare prop brackets, and within single quotes we declare the name, and then we equalize it to the value we want to get it from the integration parameters. So since LP is nothing but launch parameter, LP dot get simple date. Since it was a simple type of launch parameter, we use the command LP dot get simple data, and then the name of the launch parameter. So if we will go back and see the relation, the name of the launch parameter I declared was start, and the communication start date, and this is called start date. Similarly, I saved the launch parameter on the integration onto a prop in the integration as a end underscore dt. Since this is also a simple kind of launch parameter, I've called lp dot get simple data, and then what I'm doing is calling the RAS report. Okay, so this is the RAS report, and it has already been declared. I'm using in this report service get extra path. This is the report alias we declared on report services. And then there is a question mark. After the question mark, we have launch parameters or the prompts. as we call it on the report. So these are the
So,
prompts of the
Aryan,
report.
these code lines we have to type manually.
Yes, these code lines, like not all of them. When you go in and select this from your select report or service, right? One
Uh,
second. So if we'll go ahead, one second, copy with it because if the connection is not there or maybe they have changed the password, we'll go away. Okay. So this is new hire summary. I'll say this start click on connect. So what it does is like it automatically pulls up since you have already declared, right? In here, it already pulls up the main calling, hire summary, report.extra path. But what all you have to do is declare the prompt. The prompt, since the prompt is
variables.
variable, okay? It's like show you how prompt would be declared. So till to date is equal to, and there would be something as x66 and to date and from date is equal to. So these are report, but anything after the at the rate and the curly braces is the declaration of the variables. If you remember, any props or any it went to the source. Okay, if you remember any props or anything, if you want to declare even on the log, this is how you declare. You create it in the Java script as at the rate and then curly braces. Okay, that is the main thing. And whatever you want to declare within that, you will call this. So if I want to get the value of the prop, I will copy the prop this, okay, and declare it within at the rate curly braces. So this is the same thing. So end date and due dates are being declared here. Okay, so this is going into the launch, like the prompts of the work and the custom report. So from the launch parameter, we saved it into a variable or a prop. And from the prop, now we are getting it into the custom report prompt. Okay. So what I'm doing is creating the next step or in the next facing mediation, creating a log and getting the original output of XML. What this will do is like currently we have not splitted the XML into different fragments of each worker. It will output the whole output, like it will get the whole output of the report and on the log. Okay. If I will go ahead and create it, there's the namespace that we have declared, and here we are setting it based upon each entry. And in this case, each entry is a new hire or a worker that will split based upon each of the workers. Okay, so there's nothing that we have declared. It's just like moving it to the next step. And on the next step, what we are doing is now again when again on the next step, what we are doing is like I've written a splitted message and I'm getting the line splitter. So what this will do is like say there are hundreds of records, it will go to splitter. It will say record one, it will print. It will again go come back to the splitter record two, it will print it. Record three, it will print. Record four, it will reach the end of the record. It will start printing on the log because the split progress will always move to the next component, which is our log. Okay. So when I will run that, an output of this sort will come. If you want, I can run the output on the call as well, but I just did it for the easiness and to save some time. So what we are getting is, you remember, we first declared the original output XML. Okay, original output XML. After the line break, we had been printed. This is the whole output of the report. Not sure if I still have the license or not. Hold on. You know what? To these are the yeah, the report of doing. So all I'm doing is just copying the report output from here and pasting it in the oxygen so that I can show you how it is happening and what kind of output it is presenting on the log. And that taking a lot of time.
I think it's slow. The RDC is very slow.
Yeah, and I think I am experiencing this slowness since yesterday. Earlier it was working fine, but yesterday night, well, when I was preparing a demo, it was.
It's
I
very
will ask
slow.
them to check it after the call because if we'll do it now, it will impact 1 second. A better idea. This is original. Where is the splitted content? See, since log has a capacity as well. We will have to truncate one record because we sorry, we have a limited thing. So I'll go ahead to try to close another. I won't find, yeah. If I have written this report, I have to remove it. Get it now. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so anyway, I think the XML is not well found because it got truncated, but I just wanted to show you how the output will look. Rather, I will show you on the assembly or on the 2D, sorry, Workday screen, because they don't have any sound. So, read this report, the summary, okay. It has a lot of fields like worker, employee ID, hire date, worker type, time type, employee type, the manager of the worker, supervisory organization, and the location. Okay. So once I run this report, last me for prompt has some default values and will come up with around 329 for the prompts I gave. Okay. So this is something this report is getting, and on the log we have the same kind of information but in the form of an XML. Okay. But when we are doing it to the splitter, now you can see it is getting splitted for each of the workers. If I'll pick this record from here, from one split message to another, so I'll copy this to the oxygen output and then this one will one second. It is getting reported and so this one came in here. Okay. So what it is getting is it is splitting each of the entries. So you see the tag? Now it is getting, instead of just report data and the whole data having the whole entries, it is having each worker in a log file under the splitted message content. So now it has a worker, its employee ID, the hire date, and all the fields which are represented on the output similar to it. So you can see this, these are the all same fields. And I'll show you now how integration would get triggered. Okay, so since we did not have any launch parameters on the integration launch, no, but since we added two launch parameters, start date and end date, we'll be prompted to input values for those. So what I'll do is like 1 year back from now, from 17th of 2024 to 4 to date, today's date I will launch the integration. So what it takes in the background, now it is going to the assembly. We have entered it on the start here component. Start here component is taking it to the props where the values are getting saved on the props, and from the props it is getting declared or called on the RAS report of the custom report. And here we are outputting the same thing, original output, and then splitting the output based upon the tag we have defined. For our case, the tag is report data / report entry. So that's why it is splitting it based upon each of the entries on the report output. So you will see that many number of split messages being created as the records in the file. Okay, so that's about splitters, and this is what I'm trying to say. Since we had around 200, 300 employees, these are the number of split you see every time the split message content is printed. That is the beginning of each of the splitted records, because I gave a constant text constant before the content being printed after the splitter as splitted message content.
So message content is one of the property by default it will print. Is that right?
Yeah. Message content is a main property that will carry your message through the assembly. Okay. So message property will only have your props, your workday output from the report, anything that is traversing in this, what we call as in this assembly, is saved in a variable called as a message content.
So limit values. So it's like
And
you can limit the number of messages there.
it will print the same message, whatever it is having currently in the assembly. First time when you set, it is having only the first message, but now second time when it is having the second record. So this is the same type of thing that's happening for each of the records. So every time you're having that message content, the value in the message content is changing because of the components of the assembly. So you see, when you go to this path, it is splitting one. So the message content in here is printing first message, and because as of now it is storing only then. And when it goes back to the splitter, it clears off the earlier message and prints the next assembly row. So this is how it behaves. The message content will only have the information about the message which is currently flowing into the assembly. And that
So
is
you select the message content from the list from the top, just above that. Is that
right.
right?
It is usually when you create a log, right? I'll show you.
By
When you
default, it comes.
yeah, yeah, it is mostly created already. So
Yeah.
message content is already by default created. What all you can do is like create a text or a line separator, and then just to highlight that from where you have started printing your log. Because if I'll not do this, this will all go in one page in this kind of a manner, and you will not get to know where you have started printing the log. So this is all system generated information, the server log as well. Okay, so this is by default coming to you. So now what I'll do is, instead of having store, if I'll do here, it will store for each of the files, split it time with a file with for a number of runs until completed. That will have the same kind of log file. If I'll, and how to go and get the log files, what we do is like go to retrieve log, and from there I will go ahead and click on OK. So initially it is not available, but you have to click on retrieve log files, and then from retrieve log files you have to click on server, get downloaded. This is your log file. This is the same kind of log file that we saw earlier from the last integration, the original XML, and as well as the splitting messages are being printed. Okay, what I want to do now is show you a store component. I have already told them higher data or then created something.
Your voice is low to me right now.
Okay, sorry, I'm speaking low. So
Oh,
someone
okay.
have created some data because I believe there are a lot of employees now coming. Earlier when we were doing reporting, there were no sample employees where records were coming. But now someone has really created a lot of data inside it. Instead of 01, what I will go with 10. I'm just checking to get a limited number of records. But because what I want to do is like show you a print of each record being copied on a worker file, on a store file, the split. Ideally, this is not what we do. We usually print it on one file, but just to show you the okay, and read, okay, and then we use sequential with the not just count, but prop it count. So what I'm trying to create, since this will create multiple kind of what we have values for the file. It will have multiple file names. So I just wanted to create a counter so that we have a dynamic kind of file name for each time we print the file name, prop name, file under name.
But will it create one file for each worker?
Right. Since it is, I'm just showing you the store component. Ideally, it does not, we do not have store like this because we do it at the end of the assembly processing. But yes, since we are putting it after splitter, you see, similarly like what we were getting on the log, like it was printing on the log each time. Now it will store a file. We used a store file, so it will store a file for each one. So this is the place where we mention the expiry date or the document retention of these documents on the integration server or studio integration. Okay, let me try to deploy this now. Deploy to Workday, ZTL server. So you're seeing now even the processing is not done. We have already created a lot of files on worker.xml. Okay. If I'll open one of these and open, you see it's giving you the same thing. Instead of log, it's now storing because we used a store component. Now it's creating a file reference on your studio assembly and storing these values. So so many records have been created till now. So since as we gave the same kind of parameters, we have 19 records in these since 10th of March run. So we have 19 files being created for each of the workers. We have created a worker dot one worker underscore two worker underscore three kind of a reference for the file. Okay. So any doubts on the assembly setup? I know first I created it, but I'll go back and make you review. So till the splitter, the flow remains same. What I'm doing is since I'm trying to store these values, or these output splitted messages onto a store component or onto a file. So the store component is used to create a file on the integration event. Earlier, what we were getting is like the files were not getting created. All we were able to see was there. And here on the retrieve log files on the server log, the output files were zero. Okay. So, but in case if this is a real use case and they want to get each worker kind of file on their SFTPs. So what you'll do is like create a splitter, and after the splitter, you will use the store component. On the store component, since you know that a file name can be same for each of these, and it will get confused. You will get confused. So what I did is like went ahead. I created an eval. So for doing any kind of mathematical or any kind of variable, what you need to do is like within the spacing, use an eval, and within that eval, you create the expression. So I declare the counter as zero. And every time that splitter is coming back to this counter, it will say counter is equal to +1. And I'm using it in the worker file name, that worker underscore the counter plus dot XML. And that's the file name I have created. And this is what it is showing on the output file.
So how many files? I understand that is a logic, but like how many files it is created? Like +1 means like it should end somewhere, right?
It is ending right, 19 files.
Why only 19? Like you didn't
Because
mention
our,
any.
because if you see, the basis of our data is this report. And I gave the same kind of, that's why I showed you in the first place before even running the integration. But I'll be running the integration for this same launch parameter, and you see 19 records are here. So for each record, they are printing a file.
Okay.
Okay.
So can you show me eval condition once? So is it mandatory that like we need to write the props only in the eval condition, or
Yes.
do we have
No,
any other
you
component?
cannot declare no. Eval is the place where you have to declare the prop. There is no other component that you can declare the prop. You can use the props, but the declaration has to be done in eval.
So like suppose if I want to store, before store we need to use like eval for sure.
No,
Is it
not
right?
for sure. I am using it because I'm creating a counter. Say it
Oh,
would have been just a file name or maybe a sequence generated value would have been at the launch of the integration. So you will get it from there. Here, my use case is I'm going to do a mathematical calculation that I want to increment the file name by +1 every time the splitter message is creating a file. Otherwise, it will create worker.xml, worker.xml. How will I know which one is which? So I
okay.
created an eval and a mathematical expression to create a file name. All I'm doing of the purpose of this eval is to create file name, which is this.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on the thing we have done?
Yeah.
So I know from everyone, and you see, I have declared the expiry date of these workers as. If you remember, we have document retention policies in Core Connect. We have expiry dates of the documents or the document retention for
And what is the P and D?
P and D, this is the format of you will declare. If you'll move your cursor here, right? Similarly, like we have for sequence generators, we have simple messages thing. T is the period. It's like initially, and if you'll identify it as a period, and 180 is like 180 in the number, and D is like the days. Since I want it to be available for maximum, that is 180 days, right? That in Workday we can store a document. So I have mentioned P180D. D is the date. If you want to say 3 months, so what we'll do is like D3M.
Okay.
So
and in the first asynchronous mediation, When it is an error, you're sending to the put integration
Yeah,
message.
I'll come to that. That's the next thing. I'll come into that. Okay. So
And also, we discussed this already. Splitter is like a loop. We discussed something
right,
for the if condition. Is that the agree? What is the other one?
that is a route.
A route.
Route.
Okay.
So this
Route goes inside the splitter, correct? It cannot operate separately.
no. Route can come separately as well.
Separately. Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, route. But what it will do is like it will operate on the basis of any condition, like a condition, a M well condition or an E well.
Yeah.
Whatever condition you say, it will pass and it will go to that sequence kind of. Splitter is basically a kind of route, you are saying. That's what it said on the one of the slides. So it's designed on the same principle that we will do certain operations based upon the thing we highlight here. So what we highlighted is like split basis on this X path, and the sub route is going into that. Same to the route, there will be highlighted on the first part of your component, and then there will be sub route. So if condition 1 is true, go to this. If condition 2 is true, go to this. But in splitter, we have just like one sub route and we have the splitting condition. Yeah. So
almost similar except for the loop.
yes, it is traversing again and again.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. It says expiration date. So after this date, these documents will not be available on the integration event. Integration event can be available for a longer period of time. I think once you start running, it will always be available. I do not remember any limitations. I have seen integration events post 2 years as well. But the thing is, the documents are usually not available because the maximum period we can have is for 180 or 180 days. The expiration date is available here. And now coming to the part of send error and put integration. So what I'm trying to do in here is, if there is any error while calling the report or any error in this assembly, say I had something, so you draw this and then I will say not this. And this also what you can do is like write something and then control enter. Okay, control space. Okay, control space. If you do control space, it will give you the relevant what we call as functions that you can call. And here, so I want to just declare something which we are not using. So it will error out get reference data. Okay, label 1, label 2. This, what I'm doing is like on this async mediation, I will try to do it on the one. You have all things, if you click on the inside, you will have all these story, log, everything coming to you. But if you click on the async mediation, the whole component, you have certain other things coming up. So I'll use send error. I want create a error reporting or error logging for this component. And usually this is what we do for each of the async mediations. We want to capture the error so that at the time of debugging or integration runs, you are able to identify which component is failing and why. Okay, so send error will have certain kind of things available. And on the assembly, what we have is in the common components or components, we have rebuilt kind of smaller assemblies available to you. So I will be using put integration message. So every time there is an error, I want to put the integration message on the integration event. So I will connect this send error. Now try to see that. I'll remove this now because I've already shown you. Okay. So yeah. So I created a send error on this component, and now what I'm trying to do is like, if you see the main flow is here, but in case there is any error on this eval or inside this async mediation, it will go to the send error of this async mediation. And the flow, instead of going to here, it will go to the down part. It will say put integration message, where what I'm doing is like I'm putting an error message. Let's see where it is error, and I'm getting the get error message, like the main message that is coming up on the assembly flow. I'm capturing in here. What I'll do is like from the right syntax data file. So I will save and deploy to Workday. What it should do is, since I've not declared anything on as a reference type, but I'm calling it in the prop, it should give us an error that we are not able to execute this property because of no label slash type being found. Okay. I'm just trying to get this error. This is not was really present in our assembly. I just entered it so that we can show you how to capture errors. But on the use cases, it can be different. Right? The use cases maybe when you have declared it originally, like the start date and end date, and maybe that was a text value, and there are certain validations in here that you enter something else, then this will throw you an error. But for our case, I just added a dummy pin here, and you see this completed. Now it completed with error. It did not go in kind of failure. But you see, the same severity is error and test error failed to find parameter date named label. So what it is saying, it is same parameter date name label. So what we are getting is reference type data, and the parameter we are trying to call is label. Okay, so that's what it is saying. We're not able to find the parameter data, which is name label. Okay. Any doubts on this?
Is it only evolve can be used within the sync mediation? Evolve log?
Yes, mostly it is used on a async mediation, like to capture. But there is a thing, like say if I would have, there would be an error, right? To capture the Workday report, say you want to create an integration message in here when the report calling is done from report, but the Studio Assembly is not able to call the report. Okay, so what we do is like in here, if you go to the async mediation, there is a by default it is like this. So there is a advanced component as handle downstream errors, which it states is like the downstream for this component is this report. So if this RAS report has an error, okay, it will come back to the async mediation because it will not find the error message to go in from here. It will come back to its nearest async. It will check if it is a handle downstream error. It will go to the same kind of error logging which we have in place for this async mediation and print you the message.
So how much downstream it goes? Just one or?
The last, say there would have been another certain component that did not had any kind of error handling. It will go to the last one. Wherever
No,
you
my
have
question is, say,
enabled.
for example, there is some error in the splitter and you have set that to true. So the splitter error, will it be sent back to this async mediation one?
If you will say yes, if there is no handle downstream error,
it will go back all the way there.
It will go back all the way here.
Okay.
But usually what we try to do is like these components like split Workday RAS reports are like pre-built. So these any kind of failures happening to these components, they already have a predefined set of messages, right? So a RAS report will fail, the error will say automatically that error message unable to call the RAS report, and it will give you the name. So you will be able to identify. Since in the async mediations, all we do is like customizations. Like you can create an eval, you can do a log, you can do a store. Since these are customizable components, we create error messages or error handlers for this. Other things, they already have a predefined set of error handling being done for them. Okay, and on the error handling, since we are on handling, there
Suppose
is
I have a question.
also
One second.
one second. Since we are on error handling, there is also one more thing that we usually added for all the assemblies: global error handler. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a predefined component or subassembly available to us. So all we do is like drag and drop and do not even change any names or anything in here. So since we're into error handling, so this is like local error handling. But on the question that was that if anything goes wrong in any of the components where we have not defined, that's why we use or always include or Workday recommends to use the global handlers in your report. So in case anything happens certainly, which is not captured with the error handling you have defined, it will always go to the global error handler, and it will make sure that your assembly does not complete with the failure. It will go with the completion with the error. It will handle all kind of errors within this and highlight on the integration event.
Okay. No link is
no link is needed. It is just kind of a sub assembly within your assemblies So if you use this, it will automatically capture anything that is happening. It will fall inside it.
Thank you.
Okay. It will check for the global error handler in the last. So what happens in the background if error occurs? It will say, okay, there is an error handler. It will go. If there is no error handler for that particular error, and it is falling freely, at the end it will go to the, as we have like default cases, right? Defaultly it go to the global error. Okay. Now I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I was confusing here, like my understanding is right or wrong, but like you can see the Workday outrest component, like where the RAS report is pulled. So suppose like if we got any error here, it will
Right.
go back to the this like async mediation log or like
It will not go
this
back
like
to the thing. So if error will happen in the assembly break, flow will break. Anything error happening, the assembly will not, flow will not move ahead. Since it will not move ahead, how can it go to async mediation 0 if you're saying, okay? Go back to async mediation 0. Usually these components have a kind of error handling of its own. It will highlight you an error that I'm not able to call the assembly. But if you want to send a custom message, it will have a mechanism that it will look back to the last async variation and it will see if it has a async handle downstream error as true. And usually this is used for RAS reports only, because RAS reports, we want to highlight that if there is any particular thing happening to the RAS report, we want to capture it in the downstream error. So handle downstream error is true. It will go to this send error and create the error message. And what will happen is this flow from Workday outrest to the async mediation 0 will not happen because the error has happened. So the assembly flow will break there.
Okay. So one more question, like after start here, can we pull the RAS report here, the component instead of async mediation? So suppose if it breaks here, how it works, like so after
Then
start
there is
here,
no async mediation to handle this, or there is no send here to handle this. So
it will go.
the error will go. As I told you, these components already have certain kind of failure messages. These kind of things already inbuilt for these components. You can type in the message in here, or by default it will say like error in handling or calling this component Workday outrest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions on the things we have covered? Because I think
So
it's too late for
this
you as
put
well now.
yeah, this put integration message is just for like based on like components and
It is based upon your customization. Say if you want to create any kind of information, right? I want to store is there, right? After this, I want to create a put integration message again, and I want to just say that the file has been stored. Okay. So what it will do is, like on the messages, it will say info, and then I'll put the severity as info. So it will say info. It will say file name, and this file has been stored onto the integration event. You can use any of those things that we saw during error handling, like the different severity of messages, warning, info, or error. All these things can happen. Put integration messages, as just the name suggests, it will put a message on the integration event. So it will, anything that you use on the input integration component will come up on this. Okay.
yeah.
Any further questions?
Sender error is also like same like put in integration message, right?
No,
Same.
send error is like we are just trying to capture the error. We are trying to say that if any error is happening, then we kind of call a send error kind of thing. If we do not use it, the error handling will not happen here. We are using send error to handle the error.
For that component, just
Right,
async
for that particular component. Yeah. So
mediation.
usually flow is, this is one of the assembly codes that I had already created, okay? Like for any of these projects, I'll not go in detail, but I just wanted to show. Assembly flow will look like this. So if any of these async variations are there, right, you will usually see there is a send error, there is a send error. We're just trying to capture all these errors that is happening, even if you see, in this route component is there, even if there is nothing here, but we want to capture the errors on the route component. What we do is like create a blank async mediation and just capture the async, like the send error. If I'll go here, you see, handle downstream is true. what we'll do is like any errors which will happen in here and we want to customize those errors, it will go in here from the eval, maybe it will take error counter and it will do whatever kind of customization that you are required to do for your error handling.
Okay, whatever the next component, any error, doubt, those kind of scenarios will be sent to the
Sync mediation.
before
Yeah.
before.
If you enable that handle downstream error, it will come back. So since say any route, anything is happening to this route, or maybe this splitter after the route, so what it will do is like it will see, since the flow will break here, the error will fall. The error will not have a place to be captured. It will say, okay, now I'm here, I have a place to be captured that it says handle downstream error. So it will go to the send error, and from here it will do the processing. As we were using put integration message, now they are using maybe a different component and they are trying to use. So that will happen. Whatever steps to take after the send error will happen in case any error arises on those components. Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions before we wrap up, Ken?
In general, we saw that Studio can consume more than one inbound, right? One source data.
Right.
So here, this Workday REST report.
Right.
So do we have in our curriculum to explore that option or no?
I don't think that is to that certain extent. But what I can show you is like, say, with more than one data source that we are saying, even it can be inbound file or any web service as well. So all it depends upon, say, you have 3 reports, okay, and you want to collate the data of 3 custom reports into one, because these are based upon different business objects. You cannot create the same it on a single report, okay. The RBO, PBO relationships are not there. Say one is on finance, the other is on HCM. But on the output file, you want all the finance and HCM data to be sent across on one file. So what you will do is like, you will have a main assembly flow, okay. You will have the HCM report being called, say, this is done. You will do this processing, okay, I'm processing for each worker and have an XSLT in here, okay. You will store that output of the XSLT in some variable, okay. Later on in the same assembly flow, you will have certain kind of parameters being called that, okay, I want to call the finance report now, okay. So it will go to that assembly flow. I'll show you from here how a flow will look like. So usually what we declare on the main process flow is just start here, okay, the initializing parameters or anything that we will be using during as a globally during our integration, like any entry rate. All this is doing is like getting in all the details of the entry movement or exit movement kind of date. Okay, and then we have process flows like local out. Local outs are what like that you are asking the assembly flow to go to another sub assembly flow. So this get existing payment transfer. This is going to this call custom report. What it is doing, like getting all the payment transfer reports. Okay, you're using this component, it will get all the it will get call the custom reports. And then next time it will say do certain thing. It will give clear permanent flag. What it will do is like it has gone into here. Okay, it is doing certain kind of processing. It is calling a put message service Workday outrest. Okay, it is calling a put. So what it does is like again Workday outrest. So it is again calling another custom report. So these are multiple data sources involved. After processing, it is also asking to get the information and get it and clear the information from the report and checking it again if it is right or wrong. Okay, and then after this,
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So after this, maybe say there is another thing that you want to know, get new transfers. So what we'll do is like go to this assembly flow. Now it is calling the transfer report. Earlier, a new transfer. It was earlier it was calling the existing permanent transfer. Now it is calling the new transfer report. So similarly, if you want to do, say, I want to call this RAS report directly, okay, you can break linkage. Yeah. To move this for a while, okay, and then I will use output local out. I will say local out common. I will name it call you hire summary report. Okay. Okay, so to here. Okay. And then I will use workday in transport. This is local in. So local in and local out are like things that happen in pair. I will call this use to call it new hire summary. I say. Okay. So what it is doing, it is asking you to give an endpoint. Otherwise, it will have an error. Okay. So the endpoint you'll have to select. Since you have declared it in the Aryan sub route, it is there. One second. Save that. That's why the name is not coming properly. Now if I'll go in here, go to endpoint, you see, this is the local in. It is already, you ignore the things, the assemblies that are open. On our assembly, we have this local in. It already give you the list of all the local ins that you have declared in your assembly. Okay, as soon as you click on next and you click on finish, okay, this endpoint has been declared. Now if you save, okay. So if you go to the right click on this and go to declaration and workspace, it will definitely go the next component. Okay. So you see here I am calling in here declaration and workspace. It is directly going to the new hire summary. And what it will do
It's
is
more
like
like a function or procedure.
right. It's like a calling local in and local out. You understand that?
Yeah,
Not going outside of the assembly, it's locally going in and out from into sub-assembly.
Yeah.
Okay. So say you want to call another report after this, okay, or another web service, or maybe a different kind of data source, anything you want to call. So what we do is like connect this. Here I'll name this as call under data source. Okay. I will say this, and there is another local in. After this, and then now to point this, I will go to the same assembly. I'll select the another data source. So locally, and I want to go. Yeah, so that assembly will happen from here, from call you custom report, all this storing of okay. So this it will come to this, call another data source, it will go in here, and anything that you declare after this another data source local in will the same processing will happen. Okay. And that's how you go from one, or maybe you can call one or multiple data source, like you call one from one component local sub-assembly, and then from the other one you call another, and then later on what you can do is like collate everything, perform your actions, and save it on a file.
So my understanding was little different when we discussed that, we are going to use multiple data sources. I thought there are two different files or reports, but the content, the structure is same. So we will merge those files and do as one processing. So is that a valid use case, or this one I understand?
That's also valid.
Valid.
It
Okay.
can be, yes, that can be used like with the same thing. You can use like say if there are two XMLs, okay, two XMLs, but have certain different data elements, like the fields are different inside the XML, okay. So what you can do is based upon your processing, you can store it into certain variables. Say you want to aggregate into one, then you will use an aggregator, or maybe say you want to process first file and then save it on a text, and then after that you will also want to combine it with another source data from another XML and convert it into text again. So that is also possible if you have anything. It depends upon the kind of requirements you have. Usually what we have is like we have different types of data sources, different kinds of reports being called. That's why otherwise what we kind of do is like limit the number of data source at the report level. If it can be done on the same custom report, we will do it on the same custom report. Unless until it is not possible, then only we go ahead and say create multiple custom reports and then consume those custom reports in a studio, like, or build a studio to consume that. That's how we come, right? Like if it is a single data source that can handle it, we will do it directly, like create a custom report, and maybe if wanted, if required, we will create a EIB and a DT or an XSLT to process it instead of going through all this trouble of creating integration.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Any more questions?
No. How many reports we can attach it?
How many reports you were saying?
Yeah. Yes.
N number of, there is no such, I don't believe there is no such limitations. I've seen 6 to 7 reports being called in the same assembly then also. But we have web services being called, I think, if I'm seeing my screen. Okay, so start here. If I go, how many reports are being called in here? So this one has only 2 custom reports. But yes, like you can have all the number of custom reports. You can have a lot of custom reports in this table. Wherever you call the report service, you can declare this custom reports in here.
And what are the different types of errors we can see? Send error, global error, and any other different error.
Within send error, you can have info, warning, error, critical. Okay. Global error is something you do not have to worry about. You just use the component inside your Studio assembly. Okay. Apart from these, that's like the main 2 components just to declare. And whatever you do inside any kind of customization on the error messages as per your will. But for the severity, it is the same as we discussed earlier. It is info, warning, error, critical. These are the severities of the error messages that you can see.
Okay, thank you.